because I noticed in this month's Messenger there was a picture of the Bethlehem Portable Chapel, and it didn't ring true to me because I had always been told by my grandparents who lived here that Bethlehem had started in a tent, and that looked like a pretty permanent structure. So anyway, if you'll bear with me, and if you can't hear me, let me know and I'll try to talk louder. Can you imagine my surprise while reading this month's Messenger? An ancient photo caught my eyes, and I must say it caused a stir. Depicted in the photo is something quite discreet. It's Bethlehem's first chapel on Alexander Street. But wait, am I mistaken? I can't believe my eyes. I must admit that photo is, to me, one big surprise. It goes against the things I learned when I was just a kid. Why should that matter, what I learned, or what I said or did? I'll tell you why. Because this house is where my grandparents resided. And as a child, when I came here, I always was excited. My grandparents were Christians. They read a lot of scripture, but something doesn't seem quite right about that ancient picture. The photo is clearly labeled Bethlehem's Portable Chapel. But judging from the photo and what I think I see, to my mind, it just doesn't look too portable to me. The photo shows a structure of wood, bricks, and cement. When I was young, I thought they said the chapel was a tent. I've always heard the stories about my church and school and how it all began back when my grandparents were cool. How Bethlehem was started in their backyard. How neat. It all began so humbly here on Alexander Street. If you'll indulge this gray old man, and let me say I'm sorry, I would really like to tell you my long-remembered story. So let me take you back, way back to 1951, when I was 8 years old and life was Cracker Jackson fun. My story might be fractured, my memory incomplete, but I spent lots of time right here on where?
Alexander Street.
Right. My grandpa and my grandma once lived here in this home. As a young child, I visited and I was free to roam. To me, this house was like a mansion high up on a hill. I never have forgotten it. I doubt I ever will. But nonetheless, I must confess, my memories are sweet of all the good times I had here on
Alexander Street.
Right. Now, Alexander Street is where I spent much of my youth and where I learned to never lie and always tell the truth. So Alexander Street was home away from home for me. I spent a lot of time here, perched at my grandpa's knee. So if the church was started here in 1926, then we're all looking at a house, be told, that's more than 100 years old. You want to go to Grandma's? Those were 6 magic words. That meant that there'd be ice cream. We'd feed the squirrels and birds. We'd walk down to the Bonton for cream puffs and eclairs. Or maybe I'd help Grandpa run errands to Adair's. If we had time, we'd stop at Myers for vanilla Cokes. When we'd get home, we'd both pretend we had too much to drink. It was one of our jokes. Grandma never found it funny. At least that's what I always think. My grandpa liked his whiskey. I never understood back then. She said it made him frisky. But Grandma always had surprises, little toys or plastic flowers she bought at 88-cent sales from downtown's Wolf and Dessau. We always knew there'd be a treat or things to do on where?
Alexander Street.
Our grandpa owned a dairy. He'd bring home chocolate milk. We drank from wax containers. It went down smooth as silk. He called it People's Dairy. His trucks were all dark blue. Each morning they'd deliver milk and butter, eggs, and cottage cheese to customers they knew. My grandpa knew who struggled, who'd fallen on hard times. If they did not receive a bill, it was by his design. He argued he'd give milk away to those who can't afford to pay before he'd let today's milk spoil and he'd have to throw it away. I'd never know till decades later he'd owned a dairy farm. That farm was his profession. He'd lost his life's work early on in what we call the Great Depression. But people helped him to rebuild and helped him start his dairy. And over years, my grandpa's fortunes always seemed to vary, but still he tried to help those who faced some life's misfortunes. Eventually, his people's dairy became Allen Dairy. Today they call it Prairie Farms, a large farmers consortium. My grandpa's name was Reinhardt. His friends all called him Riney. He kept his new DeSotos all sparkling clean and shiny. When I was born, they contemplated giving me his name. But even as a baby, I raised objections just the same. I squeaked and squealed and hollered and often filled my pants. No way would I be Reinhardt. I let them know that in advance. But still, I love my grandpa. He was a dad to me. My father went to fight a war. I'd not meet him till I was 3. I wish I still had photos of my granddad's DeSotos. He bought them all at Russo Brothers every other year, unless he wrecked them, which he did with constant frequency. He had a white one, then a blue one, then black, maroon, and gray. The one I most remember was bright green in '53. My grandma's kin owned Tunney Dairy. Her cousins owned Wayne Candies at Anthony and Berry. So I grew up with chocolate and chocolate milk, okay? And that's why even now, I must have chocolate every day. Let this not be forgotten. I was the first grandchild born, and I was spoiled rotten. I got wherever I wanted to eat. That almost always included a treat. It started here on where?
Alexander Street.
My sisters and I would sit on these back steps. Our grandma's reprimands would teach us patience as the squirrels took peanuts from our hands. Down the street lived Mrs. Hickman. How she loved to bake. I especially always liked her chocolate almond cake. Down the alleyway a ways at Eckert and Key, there was a Bonton bakery that made things perfectly. My sisters liked the cream puffs, and not that no one cares, my preference often had to be those huge chocolatey eclairs. This old house brings back memories. At Christmas, there were Christmas trees and packages with gifts galore from every downtown Fort Wayne store. Every Christmas after church, we'd go to Grandma's house. I would get a tie and shirt. My sisters all would get a blouse. Grandma had her charge accounts at Grand Leader, Wolf and D's. She would order duplicates of all the clothes she bought. But please, she would order duplicates of kids' clothes she would buy and store them in the attic. We never asked her why. In her kitchen pantry, you won't believe, hello, she had 100 boxes, all flavors of Jell-O. And even though this might have been in '53, good heaven, some of those old boxes dated back to 1947. In the front closet, Grandpa kept a fancy tape recorder. He'd play back all the Christmas cheer and holiday disorder. My grandpa's uncle, Ferdinand, was much older by far. Back in 1888, he started Oyster Bar. That restaurant still exists today. I stop in on occasion. When I ask for the family discount, it's met with brusque abrasion. The Ettings were a ruthless bunch. They'd rather fist fight than eat lunch. My grandpa's brother, Wilhelm, right? At 36 killed in a fight. It wasn't any pro-like spar, it was a fight outside a bar. My Aunt Laverne lived down the block on Drexel Avenue. We called her Dutch, but why that was, nobody really knew. My mom and aunt would get dressed up and take the bus downtown to shop. It was a Saturday routine they thought would never ever stop. At noon, they'd meet at Murphy's, enjoy the luncheonette. Then, off to Hutner's Paris, Robert Hall, Patterson Fletcher, Wolf and Dessauer, Grand Leader, Richmond Brothers, and all the other stores. My grandma shopped quite different. She'd check out all the ads and call up all her favorite stores and buy out everything they had. It was the 1950s. Those good old days were gone. My grandma's stuff all got delivered long before Amazon. As soon as Grandma's order was checked out and complete, the store's truck started pulling up to where?
Alexander Street.
My grandpa and my grandma lived here for over 50 years. My grandpa liked his bourbon and favored German beer. I visited so frequently they probably got tired of me. But if they did, I never knew. They loved me and my sisters too. But life goes on, as so we're told. And as my life turned to a tizzy, I watched my grandparents grow old. And as my life turned to a tizzy, I had less time for them. I'm busy. There was no time for Bethlehem. I moved away from all of them. It had become all about me. I moved to Washington, D.C. With little thought, they got rejected. Old people rarely get respected. But now I'm old and realize how facing when the day one dies, it's such a shame how I've neglected those memories and love so sweet I got right here on Alexander Street.